about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
All right. Happy New Year's Eve, everybody. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Welcome to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Wow. Final show of the year. Now, before you guys go out and party, I don't usually get to talk to you on New Year's Day when many of you are hungover. So I want to help prevent and cure the hangover before you need it. Now, it's really interesting because we're about to celebrate the new year and many of you guys are going to wake up going, oh, and you're going to start the new year in pain. So what is a hangover? Well, a hangover is a constellation of symptoms that may occur post-partying or post-alcohol inebriation. So you'll get a headache, muscle ache, you could have nausea, anxiety, moodiness. You might want to avoid light or loud sounds. Your eyes may be red. You might be thirsty, dizzy. And you may even have more symptoms. But why do you have those symptoms? Well, this is the non-so-fun part. Okay, if you thought that wasn't fun, you could be pretty dehydrated. Alcohol is not the best choice to replace lost fluids. So if you're dancing and sweating and you're not drinking water and hydrating, but you're drinking alcohol, you could get dehydrated. You also might urinate more because alcohol causes an increase in urination. Why? Because the body wants to get the chemicals out. You also may have low blood sugar. Lack of good nutrition over the past 12 hours, the spike in your insulin with the alcohol, sugar, not good. And you might have low blood sugar. You also didn't sleep much. Did you get a nice, good, cuddly, deep sleep for 9 hours once you came home? Probably not. Not to mention you get an irritated stomach lining. Alcohol does that. It also ticks off the pancreas, so you're going to be feeling awful in the stomach. Not to mention the liver isn't very happy. And one of the chemicals responsible for this is the acetaldehyde. Acetaldehyde is a chemical converted from alcohol that's been postulated to make you feel nauseous and achy, either during the breakdown in the liver or after it gets metabolized. Plus, you got your cytokine production and release. You see that in anti-inflammatory or inflammatory states. So that could also make you achy. Could also be lactic acid buildup, withdrawal from the drinking from night before. You got the congeners or the congeners that are compounds that vary in alcohol types like your red wine, your vodka, etc. Plus, some people actually may have an allergy to alcohol. There was a nurse back in 2018, Holly Shaw, a nurse advisor at Allergy UK, and she reported to Cosmopolitan that sometimes an allergy to alcohol might be, show up as a red rash, swelling to the eyes, lips, face, breathing difficulty, stomach upset, feeling dizzy, faint due to low blood pressure, because the sulfites and their effects could also affect your lungs and your breathing. So she says the amount of sulfites contained in alcohol will vary between products, but sulfur dioxide is one of the 14 major food allergens that is required by law to be included on the labels. Now, this was in the UK. So for those people that get an asthma exacerbation or lung issue when they're drinking alcohol, this might be why. So does alcohol contain allergens? Yeah. The grapes, yeast, rye, hops, wheat, barley. Well, there are allergens, and so it could also be that. But I think really what it is your, intolerance to it. Your alcohol dehydrogenase is the enzyme that converts alcohol to acetaldehyde. And then it becomes converted to acetic acid by the enzyme. Alcohol dehydrogenase converts the alcohol to acetaldehyde, and then your acetaldehyde dehydrogenase converts the acetaldehyde to acetic acid. Ah, man, this is why I had to take biochem in medical school. Now, some East Asians may lack acetaldehyde dehydrogenase, and they might become flush with drinking alcohol. They might not convert acetaldehyde, so acetaldehyde builds up, causing more hangover type symptoms. So if you do have any East Asian descent, that could also worsen your hangover symptoms if you don't have the acetaldehyde dehydrogenase enzyme. All right, so you got a hangover. How do you cure it? All right. Well, for those of you again, try not to get the hangover. Okay. Don't drink too much. That's the best cure. Then also water. You got to hydrate. Electrolytes, Gatorade. Alcohol is a diuretic. You're going to lose a lot of urine and you're going to lose valuable salts. So drink water, not scotch and water. Drink water and electrolytes. That'll help. Eat something. An empty stomach is an irritable one. Some people say greasy breakfast. No, I would not do greasy breakfast. That's too hard on the liver and pancreas. I would do a balanced breakfast with a little bit of protein. Remember, alcohol irritated your gut, so you got to go easy. No Tabasco sauce with the eggs. Nothing spicy. Exercise helps. A short, brisk walk. The adrenaline helps the blood pump, so walk. That'll help with the headache. The cool air outside might help you feel good. Also, a little bit of that. But interestingly, there was a study I tell you about each year where Chinese researchers back in 2013 found that Sprite to be the best hangover cure. They looked at all sorts of things and they found that Sprite, because of the bubbliness and the sweetness, seemed to help with the hangover the most. I recommend sports drinks for most of you. Now, some of you will say hair of the dog. Now, hair of the dog happened when people would get bit by a dog and they wanted to ward off rabies. So they would rub the hair of the dog that bit them, not that I would go back to a rabid dog, and they would wipe it in the wound thinking that would prevent rabies. Didn't work. But hair of the dog is a term we use kind of like a treating fire with fire strategy for hangovers. So some people say, okay, well, what I'll do is drink a Bloody Mary and I'll drink alcohol. No, it does not work. People think it elevates moods, lessens the withdrawal. Maybe temporarily they're feeling hydrated. No, do not go to more alcohol. I would rather you do electrolytes. You will definitely improve. Plus, a study talked about L-cysteine last year in alcohol and alcoholism. I guess that was a study report in that journal, Alcohol and Alcoholism. And they said L-cysteine is an amino acid, which might also help. So avoid the hangover by don't get drunk. Set your limits, stick to it. Drink plenty of water throughout the night and once you get home. And don't drink on an empty stomach to speed up the buzz. Okay, your gut will absorb alcohol quicker. Eat nutritious meals prior to partying. No Tylenol or anti-inflammatories because that could affect your liver even more. And try to have a good and safe New Year. Woo! Happy New Year. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOCDALI. All right, we are back on Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer. And big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So one thing we are hearing people concerned about is the telemedicine trap. And I'm a big fan of telemedicine. I do telemedicine, but some individuals are finding that once they start telemedicine, they can't stop. They end up losing their doctor. And then when they do need to see a doctor, they're stuck going to an urgent care or ER, which is a lot more expensive. And so we call it the telemedicine trap. And I don't like that term because I think it connotes a more negative terminology. I think telemedicine offers an amazing service for those who don't have access to a medical provider that easily, especially when they're in a remote part of town. But telemedicine, what was once just supposed to be, look, we can give you access temporarily by phone and then follow up, is now many people's main medical care, medical access. And so we're starting to see patients who have the last 5, now going into 6 years since COVID, not seen a medical provider, not gotten an exam, and done exclusively telemedicine care. And with telemedicine care, yeah, you might be able to get the Band-Aids. I could get the refill or I could get something done. But unfortunately, if nobody's looking at that skin mole that could be changing, if nobody's doing your pelvic exams, checking your prostate size, checking your heart, that could be dangerous. And so we have the benefits and the life-saving benefits of telemedicine, but then patients at risk because they're not going in to see a medical provider. Most telemedicine companies do remind you to get seen and have a physical, but how practical is that? Are you able to see a doctor these days? If you're a new patient and you call up a new office, how long does it take for you to get a visit? Some of you are telling me you can't get seen now till June 2026. So what do you do if you are in this quote unquote telemedicine trap? So first and foremost, all right, you need to understand what your medical conditions are and what medical conditions you might have that haven't been diagnosed. So for example, we had a patient who went into, an urgent care, thought she had an ulcer. The urgent care gave her an antibiotic and she felt better. And so now she calls telemedicine saying, I need antibiotics for my ulcer. Well, the telemedicine provider is like, whoa, you have an ulcer. You could be bleeding. If you have an ulcer, is it from H. pylori, a bacteria that can also cause cancer? When was your last scope? When was your last, oh, I'm fine, leave me alone. I've been getting antibiotics online. I've been good. And then when we say, you got to get this checked out, and they start to hear the panic in the doctor's voice, now they panic because they haven't seen a provider this whole time because they've got treated online. So you're starting a new insurance plan as of January 1, right? It's a new insurance plan. Your deductible started over, which I think is really ridiculous. We really need to do deductible reform because you end up having a $10,000 deductible. You barely make a dent in it by December 31st. And then all of a sudden you have to start all over again and insurance never pays. But you're looking at your insurance plan, and the majority of your insurance plans are now saying, look, if you want to actually see a doctor in person, you need to pay $45 or you need to wait. And then many of these insurance companies say, but you know what? If you use telemedicine, your copay is $0. So you're like, well, then that's great. I could be saving $45 a pop always using telemedicine. You need to maybe look at your plan, and I know it might be too late to change your plan, but look at a plan where it's a little cheaper to see a doctor in person, because when you see a medical provider in person, you could do so much more. One thing people don't realize about telemedicine is most telemedicine visits will only handle one issue. So you can't call a telemedicine provider and say, all right, so here's the thing. I have diabetes. I have high blood pressure. I think I have erectile dysfunction. I want my thyroid checked. I want my metabolism checked. I also want to get on a GLP-1. Most telemedicine, they can't do it. They're like, we could address one issue. And so then you're calling back multiple times. Plus there's a max. With telemedicine, some companies will max you out. If you've had multiple visits and you haven't seen a medical provider, they'll say, look, you got to see a medical provider. So if you do have multiple issues that that you don't have a medical provider for, you could be in trouble. So you need to know what is it that you have and what is it that you need to get possibly treated. So how do you know what you don't have? Well, let's look at your family history. Do people in your family have diabetes? Do people in your family have high blood pressure? Do they have high cholesterol? Is there heart disease in the family? Is there breast cancer in the family? Is there prostate cancer in the family? I mean, if these are issues in the family and you're in your 40s or 50s or 60s, you have to get seen. Now, we've been able to cut and paste a lot of things. And some people have been able to actually, get their vaccines by going to a pharmacy without getting a doctor's order, which has been really nice. They've been able to get medications over the counter without a doctor's order. But the reason why we doctors are necessary, and I know people think I'm saying this because I think AI is going to replace my job. Yeah, AI is going to replace my job. But the reason why still we're necessary is because we think outside the box. So when you call up and you say you have epigastric pain, and the pain is above the stomach, it's bad, it's keeping you up all night, we're going to think about your gallbladder, we're going to think about an ulcer, we're going to think about your pancreas, but we're also going to think about your heart. So if a person types into the computer, I have stomach pain, is that AI going to say, look, we want to make sure it's not an inferior MI or a lower part of the heart attack? And so what I would recommend you all do, because I know this is overwhelming and I can't, go through all the scenarios in a short segment, but for the new year, make one of your New Year's resolutions to establish primary care. And when you do establish primary care, and I know many of you are going to say, Dr. Dahlia, the doctor won't spend time with me. The medical provider will be rushed. Nurse practitioners and PAs have a better reputation for spending more time than doctors. I get that. God bless them for what they do. But make an appointment, an in-person visit, and then be organized. Now, I know doctors don't like to see big, long lists, but you need to make sure you get your concerns met. And you might have to triage those concerns. If you walk in with 10 concerns, no, that doctor might not have time. But put for the first 5 the most pending. All right? And you could tell them, say, look, I haven't had a doctor since COVID, or my doctor left. I mean, if you want to put in there because of Obamacare, I have no problem with that. But, who knows who you're talking to, who you're preaching to. So I haven't had a medical provider. I'm worried. I got family history of heart disease. Now, that's a good way to open. I have family history of heart disease, because if you have family history of heart disease, that doctor has to make sure that your blood pressure is in good shape, that you don't have diabetes, that you don't have high cholesterol. So rather than saying, I need to know if I have diabetes, I need to make sure I don't have high cholesterol, I need to worry about, you could just open by, I need to make sure I don't have heart disease. If you are requiring Cialis or Viagra for erectile dysfunction, please get your heart checked. If you're having poor blood flow to the penis, you're having poor blood flow to the heart. I really credit Pfizer with Viagra, because that got people to come into the doctor's office, and I was able to check their heart and find thousands of people with coronary artery disease. Why? Because they came in asking for Viagra. I'm not saying everybody who needs Viagra has a heart issue, but if you're having blood flow issues down there, you could be having blood flow issues up here. So open with what you feel you need, and be honest with them and say, look, I understand there's telemedicine companies, but I want to have more thorough care because I'm worried something's going to get missed. If you're concerned about melanoma because you've been having telemedicine care and nobody's been evaluating you for skin cancer, ask them to be referred to a dermatologist for skin cancer screens. If you're worried about colon cancer, ask to be referred to a GI doctor. Even if your primary care provider can't manage it all, they could at least refer you to specialists. And that at least gets you in front of other doctors. And your insurance is supposed to pay for colonoscopies. They're supposed to pay for skin cancer screens. They're supposed to cover these things. And so just don't fall into that trap where I'll get a physical later. I'll just deal and cut and paste and Band-Aid my issues. Because unfortunately, we all get something. And I don't want to be the person where the doctor says, Dahlia, I could have helped you 5 years ago. Why did you wait so long? We could have done something. That's my biggest fear. I don't fear getting cancer. I fear somebody saying, why didn't you come in sooner? And that's just something that I get nightmares about. And so don't wait. Don't be that person that took 5 years to finally get a mole checked out, or a stomach pain checked out, or your prostate looked at, or your heart looked at. All right? The sooner the better. Don't say, well, it's too late. No, it's never too late. It's never too late to quit smoking. It's never too late to eat right. All right? You got this, guys. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOCDALI.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show, 1-877-Dr. Dali, 1-877-DOCDALI. Well, one thing that has frustrated me is being the first person in my family to graduate college. College for my family and for my grandparents and uncles and aunts and all that was always too expensive. And so for me to be able to go to college, I had to get an academic scholarship in state, and I'm very thankful that UNLV did that for me, where I got an academic scholarship. And then I worked at Jack in the Box. I worked on campus. I tutored, and I just pulled whatever money I could together for my living expenses and for my food. And I worked multiple part-time jobs, and it was not easy, but I was able to make it through. I graduated in 4 years, was able to go to medical school. But to go to medical school, I couldn't afford medical school. I was very grateful that there were student loans I could get, but medical school was a rich person's game unless you were able to get student loans. And I borrowed whatever I could, which was the minimum, and then I waited tables. And I waited tables while going to medical school. And throughout the whole process, I was like, I feel very lucky that I was able to get a loan and I was able to work. But if you don't have a job when all this is over, you're screwed because you're going to owe all this money back. Well, lately, especially after the Democratic primary of 2016, ideas were floated that, you don't have to pay back your student loans. We'll just pay them off for you. And once that subject came to the forefront and to the conversation, well, then it started to make us ask, well, wait a second. So we are having institutions charge a price that only rich people could pay for. And if poor people or middle income people can't pay for it, they will borrow money from the taxpayers and then have an opportunity to not pay it back if we write it off or if we have taxpayers pay it off. And you start looking at the system as it's such a mess. And then one thing that really frustrated me with the whole college and tuition issue is if I wanted to go to school in California, I had to be rich. You had to pay out-of-state tuition. You could not go to a California university without spending tens of thousands of dollars more. So I was very grateful to go to an in-state university to Nevada. But California was like, sorry, if you're not a California resident, you don't get the cheaper tuition. You want to come here, you got to pay more. Well, now we fast forward to the 2020s, and now the discussion is, well, what about migrant children? And so one thing that many people have seen and noticed is if somebody came to this country illegally or came to this country legally and is in the process of trying to establish residency, they don't have the same obstacles that U.S. citizens do as it pertains to out-of-state tuition, as it pertains to getting funding and getting scholarships. And so now we're at the point where here we are in 2025, 2026, where the United States Department of Justice is filing a complaint challenging Virginia laws that provide in-state tuition and financial assistance for migrants. So if a U.S. citizen can't go to California or can't go out of state without having to pay more money, but a migrant can get in-state tuition, we're starting to have individuals get pretty grumpy and students get pretty grumpy about a system that maybe needs to be revamped. Maybe we should be done with the idea of high tuition colleges. You know, we talk about doctor shortages and nursing shortages. Why is that? Well, because it's too gosh darn expensive. And being a doctor shouldn't be a rich man's game. I was very lucky, coming from my, very limited financial background to be able to work and make it through. But I got to tell you, if I didn't have to support myself, and if I didn't have to do loans, and if I didn't have to scrape together whatever I could scrape, maybe I would have gone and become a surgeon or done, but I know I had to work. I needed to borrow as minimum as possible. It was just, the pressures of school and college were such that if you weren't rich, you struggled. Well, that shouldn't be the situation. And I'm not saying everybody should have free college. What I'm saying is why do we have a system where colleges are so gosh darn expensive? Now, I understand. Academia, you pay your professors a lot of money. You have security. You have beautiful grounds. You have real estate. Colleges are going to charge a lot of money because they're beautiful campuses. But if it's going to cost the taxpayer money to pay for a migrant to go to that college when they couldn't go, or them to pay for and students not pay that money back, you're starting to get the sentiment where people are like, why are we spending this kind of money? And then why is a college education hundreds of thousands of dollars? I mean, there's a local medical school where the students are telling me they need to borrow $500,000 just to get their degree and to support themselves. I'm like, are you kidding me? Now, the average doctor will be able to pay off their student loans. It took me years. I borrowed 80 grand, and I probably didn't pay those off until at least 10 years out. And it was just, I was lucky and fortunate to be able to do that. I couldn't imagine if I had to pay more, but my husband had student loans and, we did the best we could, but maybe we need to start revamping how we look at college, how we pay for it, because I don't think college should be a rich man's game. I don't think that's fair. I don't think if you're rich, you get to go to Harvard and you get to go to these fancy colleges and you have to, we're using tax dollars to help people pay for their tuition at a very expensive, fancy school that may be giving them a degree that doesn't really turn around and help society anyway. So does that mean we get rid of colleges? Do we get rid of the whole financial institution network? I don't want to see that, but you're starting to see a push for online schooling, for doing college cheaper. If the student loans for nurses don't get capped at 200,000, but now get capped at 100,000. Nurses are professionals, and they should be considered professionals in any sort of legal documentation. They're addressed as professionals. However, once a college finds out that you can't squeeze $200,000 out of that nurse and only 100,000, maybe the tuition will go down. Once we increase student loan aid, once we said the government would pay for people, Colleges are like, fine, then we'll bring in the money. And I understand that they have costs. I get it. I've been to many campuses. They're beautiful campuses. But you want to know what? I have a son who's graduating, God willing, this year. And he's paid, I don't know how many thousands of dollars in tuition. He still has to pay more to graduate. You can't graduate until you pay. There's fees to graduate. I mean, shouldn't he graduate because he completed the coursework? So there's fees after fees and the nickel and diming, and it's just getting ridiculous. And so now here we are arguing about tax dollars going for migrants to go to college. And what colleges are they going to? They're going to tens of thousands of dollars per semester colleges. Maybe if college wasn't that expensive, we wouldn't have to use that many tax dollars. And then we wouldn't be having this debate on if taxpayers should pay for migrant college tuition. So my guess is, in order for us to solve this problem, one is people have to realize that many of their college degrees are worthless and they're not going to pay the tens of thousands of dollars. We have the federal government stop the faucet, so colleges just can't rake in all this money. And we start to have more access to cheaper college. And like I said, we could actually give everybody, have everybody earn their associate's degree or their trade certification in high school. Finish high school by sophomore year, and then junior and senior year is their associate's degree. We would save the taxpayers so much money, and everybody would come out with either a trade certificate or an associate's degree. Well, that's my suggestion. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. For tuning in. Green Sleeves was the first song I learned on piano. I think it was most of our songs. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous song. But I got to tell you, this t-shirt caught my eye. So there's a t-shirt. It's a meme that's been going around. And this is what the t-shirt says, okay? It says, I take ibuprofen for the headache caused by the Ramipril. I take for the hypertension from the methylphenidate. I take for the short attention span caused by the Sternatel. I take for the motion sickness. I got from the Imodium for the diarrhea caused by the Orlistat for the uncontrolled weight gain from the paroxetine. I take for the anxiety from the simvastatin. I take for my high cholesterol because exercise and good diet are just too much hard work. All right, so that's a very lengthy t-shirt. I don't know who has time to sit there and stare and read. Somebody was staring at my t-shirt, I'd be like, get out of here. Come on. You're gross. But not a t-shirt I would wear. But let's talk about that. As a doctor that now does telemedicine, when I had my own clinic before Obamacare, destroyed any chance of income coming in, I had tons of patients because nobody was paying. Patients couldn't pay and insurance wasn't paying because they're high deductibles. I would always look at their medication list and make sure, one, the drugs weren't interacting, but two, are you on a medicine that is causing you to need to be on another medicine? And maybe if we address the first medication, you wouldn't need two. When you inherit a patient from another doctor, it's tough because, it's their work. And sometimes you need to kind of sift through what they did. Sometimes they did a good job. Sometimes they did a crap job. But now that the average patient does not see the doctor, does not go to a regular doctor because they lost their doctor, unlike what Obama promised, they lost their provider. And so now what ends up happening is I apologize. I'm getting these notifications. Sorry about this. So now with telemedicine, patients are meeting a brand new doctor saying, I have this problem. The doctor wants to solve that problem because now everything's about patient reviews and surveys, and they don't want to lose their job. So they say, here's your drug, here's your medication. They should reconcile the medications, make sure it doesn't interact, etc. But when a patient gets started on a medication, in my office, you used to have to follow up in a week or two. Let's make sure that medicine is working. Let's make sure you're not having any side effects. And if you're having side effects, then maybe we want to change course. So interestingly, I had a patient that called in, was treated online for strep. She's on an antibiotic, and now she has a rash. So you would think, all right, well, she's allergic to penicillin. Just say she's allergic to penicillin and give her a different antibiotic. What if she had a virus? What if this isn't an allergy to penicillin? I'm not going to say somebody is allergic to a medication, and then that prevents them from ever getting a penicillin-based medication like amoxicillin, amoxiclav, or augmentin. And then cephalosporin has a cross-reactivity, so a lot of doctors won't even go to the cephalosporin class, like Keflex, Ceftonir, Ceftin, because of the cross-reactivity. Why doesn't somebody reconfirm this? What's going on? And usually the patient's like, well, just give me another antibiotic for the strep. And so I look back and I look to see what their throat looked like. It didn't look like strep. And I'm like, were you tested for strep or was this online? This was online. And so in person, what we used to do is let's see if you even have strep. If you don't have strep, and I understand you might have been on an antibiotic for a day or two, but it'll still pick it up. Now, if you don't need the antibiotic, we're going to take you off of it. But instead, patients are just getting it's like a Jack Daniel it's with a beer chaser. I mean, it's being chased and chased. Another medicine. So a mom called. Her child was really, really tired, very tired, and she wanted a medicine to stimulate her and give her a pick me up. And I looked at her medicines, and she's on 2 medicines that are very sedating. And I said, how often does she take this one medicine that sedates her? Oh, she takes it every day. What time during the day? She takes it in the morning. And when I told the mom that could be the issue, rather than saying thank you, now, wow, you're the first doctor to tell me this, she was mad. He's like, my daughter needs a stimulant. And I'm like, you got a child who is being drugged, sedated. Now you want another drug to wake them up. That's a problem. Let's go back to the sedating medication and maybe alter the dosing, strategize better with the dosing, or find something less sedating. Now, so this t-shirt where, somebody's on an antidepressant, then they gain weight, then they take a medication to lose the weight. But then taking that medication to lose the weight might be a stimulant drug, or it might be a drug like a GLP causing GI issues. So I'll have patients call in saying, I need Zofran, and a lot of it. It's an anti-nausea medicine. Like, why do you need it? What's going on? Well, I use marijuana to sleep, and the marijuana is not working for the nausea anymore. Well, marijuana can make you nauseated, so that could be one of it. And my Ozempic is making me nauseous. And I'm like, well, you can't be on this nausea medicine long term. I could give you a couple tablets. Oh, no. I need it for the next 2 years because I'm going to be on Ozempic for 2 years. And I'm like, well, if it's making you that nauseous, we might need to go back and fix this. Maybe it's the dosing. Maybe you need a different brand. But people would rather take one medicine to handle the other medicine to handle the other than to go back and fix the original. This is one of the reasons why it costs so much. Healthcare costs so much. So what do? Well, first, you should always have these conversations with the doctor. And you should always try to have a primary care doctor or provider, nurse practitioner, PA, who you could see face to face. And take a look at the medications. And one question I tell people to ask is, am I on too many medications? I understand I need some of these medications, but I want to make sure I'm not duplicating something or taking something because of a side effect of something else. How many of you have been told that you need to be on antacids and something to protect the kidney because you're on anti-inflammatories on a regular basis? Why are you on anti-inflammatories? Well, I got a bad knee. Well, there are things we can do to locally address the knee rather than systemically, because if you're taking 800 milligrams of ibuprofen, it's going to hurt your heart, it's going to hurt your kidneys, and it's going to hurt your stomach lining. You might not need to be on the acid suppressor and the kidney protector if we address the knee. Maybe you need an injection. Maybe you need PRP. Maybe you need Synvisc. Maybe you need a knee replacement. No, it's easier to just take the pills. We have an issue. I think a lot of people are taking too many medications. One reason why I like Crestor, rosuvastatin, it's not because I'm in bed with a pharmaceutical company, but I would have patients coming in on 80 milligrams of Zocor, the maximum of it. And I'm like, look, for poops and giggles, let me switch you to the rosuvastatin. Let me try you on 20 milligrams. See what happens. And their cholesterol even improved. Now, Zocor is a fantastic medication, but it's an older one. And some patients, whether they just got used to it or somehow, who knows, was on the max dose of it. So they were coming in saying, I need a second cholesterol medication. Well, rather than a second cholesterol medication, let me try something a little different. And that might, and it worked. It even put them in better control. I just saved them from needing a second or third cholesterol medication. Same thing with diabetes medications. I've had patients where they're on 4 or 5 different diabetic medications. And I'm like, I know you're not going to like this, but what if we just try the insulin? You might not need these 4 or 5 other pills. And I'm not saying go on insulin if you don't need to, but we really need to reevaluate what we're doing, how we're doing it, and then reevaluate if our medicines could be causing us to need more medications or getting more pathology. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, don't go away.
Looking for an easy read that can actually help secure someone's future? Pick up a copy of Mark Falter's book, Common Sense Income Strategies. For the past 30-plus years, Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. It's not rocket science, it's a pretty easy read. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. Common Sense Income Strategies is available now on Amazon or by calling 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Common Sense Income Strategies by Financial Fitness Show host Mark Falter. Secure your financial future today.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.